냠제 전부도 유미종 또는 모는 전부가 자다 다그러 다른 전도 실문도 또만 제잔라기 숑살.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta before we start today's teaching.
Manji Jarbo, Chuji Namjam Mambo, Shadon Chato, Shapra Shagor, Manji Jarbo, Chuji Namjam Teto Tamji Nana, Chuji Namjam Dona, Jitin Tamchet on Montambate. Jitin Tamchi the Chipper Manjuro, Manji Jarbondon, Division Shop and Gumbriship in Nanga Sanchivate. Division Shop Stopki, Division Shop Stopki, Chungar, Hun Mampervago, Nindon, Hun Maptambate, Manji Jarbo, Division Shop of Jibana. Chuji Namjan Dalartio Montbourpona, Division Shabamnian, Yonsemian, Lendena Thatcher Moore, Manji Jarpo, Division Shaba, Yonsemian, Lendene Kang, Chuji Namjan Dala Tapatan, Lobatan, Ikin Jav, Kurto Shebadan, Jantarlayan, to Brushipa Rikium, Rikium, Tetaki. Teterna, Division Shaba, Chukuki, Oyobra Ribroshawo, Jitendi Kang Jana, Jiba, Division Shaba, Namji, Shinji Lobo. Tedal Soso, Ranga, Tapir Top, Givi, Savi, Stop, Monum Girtop Chandan Yuru, Manji Jarbo, Rikio, Motedo, Division Shop, Nechignan, the Parangerte, Teta Shola, Division Shop, Shaka, Nickburn Yuro, Manji Jarbo, Shokanaga, Chudir Namja, Don Chatham Tondam Yigan, Dragum Katon Shetam, Yang Tabra, Jopi, Shoter, Manji Jarbo, Division Shop, Churten Chimbo. Rumbo Chile Shibam Tojan Chiva Shawo, de Division Shop, Cordon Ibra, Jarmagoso, de Jena, de Division Shop, Cordon Stigden, Dibab, Gerbrun, Yuri, Shiro, Savjote, Kana, Chudir Namjan, Chatham, Tonton, Locken, Yantar Jotam, Yikim, Dragon, Lavam, the Shade, Janta, Terum Churten, the Kurto Shepadam, Zumbrushevad, Romur Shebadam, Chubrushaw. Méthode dans du pot dans Chama dans Shiba dans mes schéma dans coup dans dig dans Jamson dans Li Vadan dans number Jerry Vadan Tamchet dans le dans Rumu Jadon Karar dans Sarnian dans Pever Daba Tamchet Jim Chubrushago Pardo Batamji Chubrushago Manji Jerbo Simjin Gang Division Shop in Chutin de la Shopser Saragam Tongarni Pate Tamchet Manji Jerbo Lana me payan to Berzob Shanchep dans Shunda Never Dira Rigbrushao, Tiji Virgin Manji Jarbo, Kimna Nepal, Raptushon, Shanchus and Wa Mambo, Shanchus and Rishabasho, Chujir Namjan, the Stavagam, Nyambagam, Yikir and Javagam, Chubrushawa, and Mernido. Manji Jarbo, Churtava, Chujir Namjan, the Minion Batidam, the Shanchus and Wash, Shanchus and Was and Risho Balam Keba Mayano, Kungatsena, Chujir Namjan, the Nyante, Tune, Mubadan, Stobadan, Jigbadan, Shibadan, Yons. Zambati, Zenavlana, me payan to Shanchip of Nibra, Nimbrin Jera, Ste, Nera Nebayano, Manji Jarbote, Huerna, Malala Jika Chundorte, Chutundot Prinjerte, Chunsorana, the chief der Kamsi Shokun, the Chumbar Kurupchite, Derkoana, Kamjar, Kavi, Sam Jembrum Tonte, Tony Janderton, the Nayet. Yitchatato, Tarambunyam, the Simso, Deni Tijanjina, Meti, Sakshirat, Ripadan, Damdar, Zaptan, Chi Tiba, Zabam Jinjan, Chumba, Shkovi, Mete, Lion, Damzaki, Gong, Gubaram Tonte, Deni, Manji Jerbo, Mete, Natetim, Tone, Tobadan, Tetum, Pandani, Chidan, Newo, Nyamu. Manji Jarpo, Division the Chizam the Yang, Chuji Namjan the Manim Badam, Munzamba Kondom Machip, Manjik Bird, Musimbi, Varta, Yang Shanju San Hua, San Hua Chimbon, the Lana Mepayan, the Berzobo Shanchivle, Ranga, Manji Jarpo, Kungatsena, Shanchu San Hua, Chimbo, Teta Chuji Namjan, the Nyanjan Zambadan, Jibadan, Katon the Shiba. Sambadan Gumba, Sambadan Gumba, the Zena de Lana me bayan the Borzobo Shanchip, the never in Jerayan, that Manji Chuji Namjan, the Simpson Namjulana me bayan the Borzobo Shanchip, Stewa, Tiji Virgina Chuji Namjan, the Dembro Gonde, Shapan, Jim Choyim, Bishara, the Division Shop of Jondan, the Ant of Borzobo San G, Shanchu Sanwa Chimbon, Rnam Yonson, the Brushavich, the Chuksan, Sanwa Nevjador, Manji Shanchu Sanwa. Gang la 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 ji ke chu ji nam zhang de la zhag jang ngang de dang wer jer na la na me ba man ji jer bo shang chu sen hua chen bo de ta ba sar de ji ba ru bra sha wo ka te yang nyang tu ji ta ba chen ji ke chu ji nam zhang de zhag jang ngang de ngang wer jer na man ji jer bo to na nyang tu ji ta ba chen ji gang zi ge ngar jer jan de ru bra sha wo man ji jer bo shang chu sen hua chen bo gang la la ji ke de jang sha ba yong sem ning len de ne shi me di ji ce na chu ji nam zhang de ko Kurujila yang da bertona manji jerbo jan zangwa dina devjan shagbi nesa jede devjan shagba chuji gu wa devjan shagbi tanlan de te chuji namjan de shin kurujila yang da bro sha or manji jerbo devjan shagba ne kan jinar manji jerbo semchen tamchil la shambra ne ba ta manji jerbo devjan shagba la ne de manji jerbo te re jiwa te lan jibro sha or manji jerbo devjan shagbi chugu kan jena manji jerbo zoba dan ti ba chimbo devjan shagbi chugu de manji jerbo te re jiwa ti gobro sha or manji jerbo devjan shagbi chuji stan kan jena chu tam da tomba ne tan jigba te manji jerbo devjan shagba chuji stan te na te re jiwa te lan jibro sha or ne chuji namran don koro jibo ta la yang da相处生活没人比参与，相处生活没人比相处生活做到，相处生活他把那样的不是基本苦肉就我对他跟他那样รับ到当不是我们就讲本就等级看嘛像那样知道这个机会对那样可能他们人就说只有给弄嘛当给人嘛。当去年的结果，就是马瓦得到对象说把得到什么都讲工人没些的，该得点过那点的不是，就那样的拉当、路线当、制造当、他妈样当、南开当的就，没个知道都是进步蒙博年的结果，蛮就结果俺就等于看我现在这个呢，样这个机会对了样哎，你为单独样刚到出去南庄的啦，这当一根下边结果对看懂些那拉样通不是小我的那种的基地这是下边的都怪啥都。Jimba tamchir nan pang de dan do de nyon dan do den dan nyon shandar nyon dan shandar ni dan shandar tubra ka mubar ni par shandar ka chartara la chando per kamz trumbar korjula shibjir rapta ko na sarkam tagna amjong ramdong Tem tong te na semba na chini chi yang diang rang te sarkam kubra shipa yang dana diang rang tsamma nyam shibshir sa tagar namba yek shira kang tagam tong gira tse tena te la tukbara gira teni chi yang tagma rang devjim dor te nda nyamma nyan na jang shibshir shanda mabkong te yang sang ge ishi na dan zha wa le shanda rang刚才娘多南街那大兰巴巴多的接着咱们的你的年纪了像拉起嘛也那什些巴给巴的到上街一起来呢你人就吃的啥呢这个也吃东西吃到你些小啊像那家伙呢这个拉皮的家伙呢的拉皮的就过到个讲过呢是爱当烂的呢那么多人的你的们这个就相比多呢爱要呢做到第八个就过的东巴呢的爱当Telandine raptor ton ikpo wam dong tong dang ikba wam dong dong xie war de bro xie ba na gang de xia ba de xiong yang da ni da zhen ni ne de zo xia xia dong zhe jiang de yang ngai li ji wu bo dan ge ra xie wa san yi zi zhen zhen nan la ju dong de yong zhen ning en de ni nam de din de ni de gang tuan ba ngai hua wo de la yang zhu ran mang bo jie re xie ge long nam dang ge long ma ge yin nam dang ge yin ma de de la nam che bro xie ko nam la yang er mo xie wong yik de jin xie wa da de bro xie zhang ju ba da de de gang nam xie ba yang zhu nam ji de de do ma dang zha wei yi zhou dang gong ba nam dang re da la nam zhe chi bro ne ne se ka dong xie bro ji ra na de la go se re ngai li ngin de la dan bro xia dana kadon norwa ya jirjan tombra njir chibr na jeshida jan tin te la ne bi ce la dong no jin ma da da te yi zhou zi jibr jan ku la no rap tomba ti yon den tin zhe jir no zhi 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 ne xiang ka dong xie ba ding ngam tong te yi bu ba dong me dan jir chu dong yi zi ge mang bo xi der der sang jie xian le be zhou qi xi ba dong zhou qi xi dong di zi me jie sim zhi gang de der ten ba xiang ju san hu er dim ni ren zhou de dang ten jiang zhou ba ge san ji geng long xie ni de dong dan bi ju ba ma ge ru le chu ma ba ji xia wi le ge te zhe ba gu
Next, we will teach the Lotus Sutra. We are now teaching the Dharma Teachers chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Let me first explain a little. In this chapter, the Buddha mainly teaches Vaisajyaraja Bodhisattva about many merits. The Lotus Sutra can be said to have in our daily lives, no matter what we encounter, especially powerful blessings. For those with faith, needless to say, but even if you lack faith, various things in daily life, including illnesses and disasters, all these can vanish through the Buddha's blessings. Long ago, during the Tang dynasty, there was a patient who for many years was plagued by illness, suffering greatly. He had gout. His parents were extremely worried about this child. They basically couldn't eat or sleep well. This child was quite filial. He felt it was not good for his parents to be this way. To eliminate suffering for himself and others, he began preparing to copy the first fascicle of the Lotus Sutra. But because his own health was poor and his hands might not work well, the sutra he copied looked like birds crawling, extremely ugly. Later he hired a scribe, but before this fascicle was finished, the patient had already died. After death, when he met the messengers of Yama in the intermediate state and they examined the karmic causes and effects from his worldly life, why did he get this gout? Actually, he had once strangled a mouse by its neck, harming it. As the ripened result of this karma, he experienced suffering in this life. Later, Yama's messengers said, because you copied the Lotus Sutra, you performed a great virtue. You may still return to the human realm. They told him his lifespan could reach 80 years. His parents would also live to 90. After about 1 day and night, he returned because when he had stopped breathing, his body had not been handled and his chest was still warm. For this reason, he revived. After reviving, he came to deeply believe in the principles of karmic cause and effect. Then he renounced his family wealth and spent his entire life copying 10 volumes of the Lotus Sutra. This is historical fact. So in our daily lives, some people may indeed have physical ailments that no doctor can cure, no medicine helps. Some even frequently resort to divination. Nowadays, some people constantly seek divination at every turn. Actually, this isn't necessary. For those who believe in cause and effect, the suffering in this life has many causes and conditions. So we ourselves, including those whose work or family life is difficult, at such times we can generally understand that perhaps it's an unchangeable, ripened result from past lives. Perhaps certain past life karma can be changed through confession, through liberating lives, through reciting sutras. So sometimes, divination and fortune-telling, it's better to examine ourselves, although I know how to divine. I often don't use divination. I sense whether this illness might be related to something, which sutra should I recite. If we make our own decisions, actually, our first thought is a prophecy of the future. His Holiness Jigme Ponsok also taught, for example, what's the cause this time? You sense it yourself. Perhaps it's because of past life killing, so I should recite sutras. That might help. This difficulty may be because I owe too much to others, so I should make confession and similar practices. These virtuous actions are very important. Among those who divine, some may be accurate, while others rely on luck. So we can't say that 100% are reliable. But our own discernment of cause and effect, reading the Lotus Sutra and making offerings to it, this should be very reasonable. So previously, let me briefly mention when I first came to the academy, a Khenpo taught us the 5 treatises of Maitreya. I remember it vividly. That summer, His Holiness went to Chinlong. I had arrived about 1 or 2 months earlier. His Holiness had taught a commentary on the Madhyama Kalamkara, and then he had been gone for about 2 or 3 months. At that time, there was no way to communicate. We wrote a letter to His Holiness that Khenpo asked me to write it. The first sentence said, "We have no bandits here," because at that time, the academy had very few people, and I hadn't, having just arrived, I couldn't have gone with His Holiness. So we wrote to His Holiness. I don't know if he received that letter. Later, there was no response. When His Holiness was away, the academy was very peaceful. Classes continued every day. During class, that Khenpo would tell stories about Maitreya Bodhisattva every day. Before class, he would tell a story every day. He would tell one story each day. Sometimes I really enjoyed listening. Sometimes I wasn't that interested. But regardless, when the Khenpo taught, I still pretended to listen attentively. Sometimes the stories inspired great faith and joy. Sometimes it seemed, perhaps at that time, my conceptual mind was quite strong, so I wasn't always so engaged. Some masters have this tradition. When we taught the Diamond Sutra previously, we told a story almost every day. But for the Lotus Sutra, I wonder if later on I'll be able to find much material. It seems that during the Tang, Song, and Yuan dynasties, there were quite a few response records. If convenient, I'll share some with you. This was briefly mentioned earlier to inspire faith in the Lotus Sutra. We now have many illnesses that can't be cured in a lifetime. Every day taking medicine, every day seeing doctors. Some people suffer continuously. In such cases, you can hand copy the Lotus Sutra or recite it to eliminate mental suffering and physical illness. Below, the Buddha tells Vaisajya Raja Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "The sutras I have taught are immeasurable, boundless, countless millions." Actually, the sutras taught by the Buddha in the Tibetan area and Han region, we have only a fraction. When we taught the Abhidharma Kosha and Abhisamaya Lamkara, we discussed this. Of the 84,000 collections of Dharma, what flourishes now in the Tibetan area, Han region, and India is extremely little. Some were taken to the Naga realm. Some were taken to the 33 heavens. Some disappeared because India experienced 3 periods of persecution against Buddhism. As a result, many were lost. Before masters in the Tibetan area and Han region translated them, many texts no longer existed in India. When Atisha came to the Tibetan area and saw the library at Samye, he said these tantras and treatises seemed very rare even in India. The Buddha's scriptures are extremely numerous. Among so many scriptures the Buddha previously taught, including the Prajnaparamita Sutras, and sutras from the first turning of the Dharma wheel, he taught many previously. There are also sutras the Buddha is currently teaching and will teach in the future. Those currently being taught, like our present Lotus Sutra, the Buddha was teaching the Lotus Sutra among his assembly at that time. As for future teachings, the Buddha had not yet manifested parinirvana at that time. Later teachings include the Kalakakra Tantra and the Nirvana Sutra. The meaning of the Lotus Sutra generally explains it this way. Among all these, the Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to believe in and the most difficult to understand. Because it's so profound, it contains many inconceivable merits and blessings. So many people find it very hard to believe. Also, because of the profound emptiness of the one vehicle taught within, many people find it very difficult to understand and realize. So among all the sutras taught by the Buddha in the 3 periods, the Lotus Sutra should be the most difficult to comprehend, the most difficult to explain, and the most difficult to believe in. So for most of us now to have faith in this Dharma is also truly inconceivable. The Buddha told Vaisajya Raja, "This sutra is the secret treasury of all Buddhas, the most profound, essential secret treasury within esoteric teachings. It It should not be distributed to all kinds of people. Before unsuitable vessels, it cannot be taught casually, because all the Buddhas and world-honored ones of the 10 directions have always protected it and continuously guarded it. Never have they clearly revealed the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra in detail before unsuitable vessels. So even when the Tathagata was in this world, many people rejected it or harbored resentment and jealousy, dissatisfaction and hatred toward it. This also happened. The Tibetan text says that when the Tathagata was in the world, many people rejected this sutra. Because this sutra is extremely profound, and because of its extreme profundity, many beings cannot accept it. When the Tathagata was in the world, many could not accept it. As we mentioned before, 5,000 people had already abandoned the Lotus assembly. So even when the Tathagata was in the world, there were many such cases. How much more so after the Tathagata's parinirvana? So now, some people cannot accept it. When hearing this, everyone's feelings are quite complex. When we first began teaching last year, everyone was quite clear. Some people were very joyful, while others suffered greatly. Even many afflictions previously stored in the alaya vijnana all surfaced. This has already been explained here. That's one issue. There's another matter. We often say here that esoteric dharma should not be casually transmitted to everyone, but it's not only esoteric dharma. Actually, the profound teachings of Mahayana also cannot be transmitted to everyone at will. Look here, the Tathagata has always protected this. Moreover, it cannot be transmitted casually. It's not because esoteric dharma has particularly grave faults or unspeakable facts. It's not like that. It's because they cannot accept it. In this world, among all people, each person's wisdom differs. Some people have quite excellent wisdom. Such people can accept profound principles. For others, there's no way. So we teach them ordinary instructions and ordinary dharma. Therefore, even within the esoteric tradition, there is this aspect of keeping things confidential. In our esoteric tradition, we often have this, for example, samaya, seal, seal, seal. It should be sealed and kept, not transmitted casually. Actually, in this way, one receives even greater blessings. For instance, regarding the Lotus Sutra, if conditions aren't fully present, if you preserve it yourself and practice well, this special protection will naturally bring limitless power and blessings to your mind stream. This is also a natural law. The Buddha told Bhaisajya Raja Bodhisattva, Bhaisajya Raja, you should know that after the Tathagata's parinirvana, regarding this text, the Lotus Sutra, whether copying it, upholding it, or reciting it, reading means generally reading aloud, or one may also read silently. Reciting means memorizing. Both are acceptable. Then making offerings and expounding it to others. The Tathagata's Dharma robes will cover their bodies. Reading and reciting it oneself, making offerings and expounding it to others. Of course, some possess one of these merits, such as reading or reciting it themselves, or making offerings themselves, or expounding it to others. Some may possess all of these, copying it themselves and upholding it, reading, reciting, making offerings, and expounding it to others. In such cases, actually, the Tathagata always covers them with his robes of wisdom. This means the Tathagata's blessings constantly protect them, preventing harm from evil spirits and non-Buddhists. Moreover, they receive the mindful protection of Buddhas in the 10 directions. This word, mindful protection, also appears in the Tibetan. The Buddhas of the 10 directions cherish and bless them. They constantly watch over them, constantly protecting and blessing them. When we look at this text, it seems that in Kumarajva's translation, he often uses mindful protection for many blessings. Nowadays, what is a blessing? Bless this, bless that. The word blessing doesn't seem to appear in Kumarajva's vocabulary. The meaning is that for those who deeply value the Lotus Sutra, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas constantly bless them. This person has great power of faith and great vow power, as well as great power of merit. Because if you frequently cherish this scripture, this sutra, actually, they possess great faith, not like Hinayana or worldly faith. This is Mahayana faith. They have great vow power. Their past life vows were extremely vast. Moreover, they possess great power of merit, incomparable to ordinary merit, like the power of Mahayana merit embraced by bodhicitta. Such a person can dwell together with the Tathagata in the same place. The Tathagata personally touches their head and blesses them. So generally, many people think, I want to meet a certain master, a certain great being. I wish to receive their head touching, their empowerment, their blessings. And nowadays, many people don't understand what empowerment is or what head touching is. Often when I meet people on the road, please give me an empowerment, then I touch their head, empowerment complete. Oh yes, I received empowerment. Actually, empowerment and head touching are different. Head touching is relatively easy. Empowerment requires certain qualifications to be given properly. If we regularly uphold the Lotus Sutra, we should say this person receives the Tathagata's empowerment and blessings, dwelling together with the Tathagata in the same place. The Buddha told Paisajya Raja, in whatever place someone expounds the Lotus Sutra, reads it, recites it, or copies it, then in the place where this person dwells or where the scripture is kept, a stupa of 7 jewels should already be present. Moreover, this 7-jeweled stupa is extremely tall, adorned with various precious jewels. This jeweled stupa does not need the Tathagata's relics as consecration. The meaning is this: if a person regularly reads the Lotus Sutra, actually, the Tathagata's treasury is already complete here. This can be explained in 2 ways. On the other hand, if someone practices the Lotus Sutra in a certain place, actually, one can also build a Buddha stupa there. When building the stupa, the Lotus Sutra can serve as the consecration. The Tibetan and Chinese texts both convey similar meanings. Actually, it is indeed like this. Why is this so? Because within this stupa, the Tathagata's complete body already resides. Nothing more is needed. Generally speaking, it's best if a Buddha stupa contains actual Buddha relics. However, if you lack Buddha relics but place the Lotus Sutra inside, it is no different from actual bodily relics. For this stupa, one should make offerings with flowers, incense, wonderful fragrances, garlands, silk banners, as well as music and various song and dance performances, making offerings with respect, veneration, and praise. If someone sees the stupa just mentioned and makes prostrations and offerings, you should know this person is actually very close to the Tathagata's perfect enlightenment. The meaning is that those who practice the Lotus Sutra are all very close to Bodhi, or in places where stupas contain the Lotus Sutra, or forming connections with such stupas is also extremely beneficial. For example, circumambulating and making prostrations. In this way, one draws especially close to the path of Bodhi. The Buddha told Paisajya Raja, many people, whether householders or monastics practicing the Bodhisattva path, if they cannot hear, cannot read and recite, cannot copy, or cannot make offerings to the Lotus Sutra, you should know these people are actually not good practitioners. They have not practiced the Bodhisattva path well. If some people say regarding the Lotus Sutra, I don't want to listen, I don't want to copy, I don't want to read, I don't want to uphold it, such people indicate that no matter what they claim verbally regarding this Lotus Sutra, those of us who study and practice it together are good practitioners. If people use various reasons and excuses, I'm not free, I don't need it, I practice esoteric dharma. Now, some in our esoteric classes only listen to esoteric teachings, but don't listen to exoteric ones. They are quite biased. This is actually due to their own narrow-mindedness. Some have great faith in every exoteric teaching. Everyone is very willing to practice. But some seem to focus only on certain esoteric teachings. They suddenly appear, and when exoteric teachings are mentioned, they think, I have esoteric capacity, but with esoteric capacity, it seems esoteric dharma hasn't tamed their mind stream either, because without studying these exoteric teachings regularly, their theoretical foundation is quite poor. Verbally, they say, I practice esoteric dharma, but actually their exoteric foundation hasn't been established yet. So it also says here that those unwilling to study and practice the Lotus Sutra, such people have not practiced the Bodhisattva path well. they have not properly practiced the Bodhisattva path. Conversely, if someone hears this sutra and likewise reads, recites, copies, and makes offerings, then this Bodhisattva practices the Bodhisattva path well. This person is a good person. This person is an excellent practitioner. The meaning of peaceful practice in the Lotus Sutra states, if one wishes to seek the supreme path, study the Lotus Sutra. A great master from the Han region wrote this, saying that if one wishes to attain the supreme path, one should study the Lotus Sutra. Body and mind realize the nectar, the pure and wonderful Dharma gate. What does one attain? Body and mind free from any suffering, the supreme realm of the wonderful Dharma like nectar. So if anyone wishes to attain the supreme path, they must study and practice the Lotus Sutra. If one studies the Lotus Sutra well afterward, the transformation is tremendous. Among those who initially heard the Lotus Sutra, some originally had no faith. Some came out of curiosity to listen. Now they have basically become genuine Buddhists. Every day they copy sutras. Every day they make offerings and light lamps. If they can memorize even a single verse and form a good connection with it, virtue accumulates little by little. It's not accumulated vastly and boundlessly in a single day. That presents certain difficulties. So practicing this Dharma is extremely meaningful. Among those seeking the Buddha path, if they can see or hear this Lotus Sutra, through seeing it and hearing it, they develop faith and uphold it. You should know this person is already extremely close to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So this time everyone has formed a Dharma connection. Even those without faith, perhaps while traveling or in our study groups, we allow some to listen a bit and form a good connection, planting a seed of virtue in their alaya vijnana. It will ripen. Once it ripens, it will blossom and bear fruit. So we also know that all who hear or see this Dharma text, who can hear the transmission of the Lotus Sutra, are actually very close to the Buddha ground. Here an analogy is given. The Buddha told Paisajja Raja, suppose there is a person who wishes to obtain water in a parched place, so they go to a high plateau to dig a well. As they dig, at first they see rather dry soil. At that time they know the water is still far away and cannot be reached. Seeing the soil is completely dry, it cannot be reached. Then they continue working and digging. Later they see within it much rather moist soil. Gradually they see mud within. In their mind, they are completely certain that water is now near. Nowadays, most wells are dug by machine. When digging a well, 30 or 20 meters goes very quickly. In many places, for 10 or 20,000 yuan, one can dig 20 or 30 meters. It's completed very quickly. But ancient people were not like this. They dug little by little. At first this place was very dry with nothing at all. Then later, basically, the soil becomes moist. Then slowly it becomes mud. If they continue digging, they find water. So before knowing water is there, when approaching the mud stage, they know there is water. Just as in the Prajnaparamita Samkayagatha, for someone lost in a forest, when they finally see the field's edge or the forest's boundary, it means they've emerged from within. Similarly, encountering the Prajnaparamita is also a sign of liberation. Here it's the same. Bodhisattvas are likewise, if they have not heard, understood, or practiced. That is, without hearing, contemplation, and practice, without hearing and understanding, without truly contemplating, pondering, and comprehending, without properly practicing the Lotus Sutra, you should know this person is still extremely far from Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. If they attain hearing, understanding, contemplation, and practice, in Tibetan Buddhism we often speak of hearing, contemplation, and practice. In Han Buddhism's Lotus Sutra, there is also hearing, contemplation, and practice. Some say, how does the Han region not have hearing, contemplation, and practice? And actually the Han region has this tradition of hearing, contemplation, and practice. These words exist. But perhaps in common usage it's not like the Tibetan area. In the Tibetan area, generally in monasteries or among monastics, without hearing, contemplation, and practice, one cannot be considered a good Buddhist. One must first hear, then contemplate. Contemplation also includes debate and discussion with each other. These are prerequisites for contemplation. Then one proceeds to practice. In practice, there is analytical meditation and non-analytical meditation. There are meditation with thought and meditation without thought, two types. So those who hear, contemplate, and practice the Lotus Sutra Sutra, first hearing, then contemplating, then practicing. Such people will certainly know, just like seeing the moist mud mentioned earlier. So now we engage in hearing, contemplation, and practice. No matter what, we who are present are also people who hear, contemplate, and practice the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha personally spoke these Vajra words. We should be relatively close to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. There is still hope for liberation from samsara. It's not without hope. Why is this? All the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi of all Bodhisattvas, all the principles of attaining perfect enlightenment, are already encompassed by the Lotus Sutra. They can all be included here. The principles of this sutra actually open the door of skillful means from the perspectives of definitive and provisional meanings, first teaching some provisional three-vehicle principles, then the definitive, most profound principles of true reality. Therefore, this lotus treasury, its content is extremely profound, solid, vast, and far-reaching. Extremely vast, because it is especially profound, generally speaking. Without certain wisdom, one cannot fully realize its meaning. Then it is very solid, whether its words or its content. We ordinary foolish people cannot penetrate it. It's extremely solid. Dull people cannot enter. As for far-reaching, its content touches every aspect, extremely vast. Ordinary people cannot attain it. Therefore, today the Buddha uses skillful methods to teach these bodhisattvas, teaching everyone this Lotus Sutra. Teaching the Lotus Sutra is actually not easy at all. This passage in the Tibetan seems to say that regarding this Lotus Sutra, because it is so extremely profound, in order to teach these bodhisattvas, the Buddha taught the most excellent skillful means of the Lotus Sutra. It doesn't seem to have many extra words. In the Tibetan, it's a relatively simple sentence passing by. You're not dozing off yet. That's good. Having just finished lunch, some should be quite full. Generally speaking, when teaching after lunch, afternoon classes are quite prone to drowsiness, and after dinner in the evening, listening to class is also quite heavy, but I don't see anyone dozing off among those present. This is still quite good. It shows you still have faith in the Lotus Sutra. So we should teach, read, and recite the Lotus Sutra with faith and through hearing and contemplation. The other day I saw the records of responses to the Lotus Sutra. It mentions a monastic who, over 30 years, recited the Lotus Sutra 37,000 times. Over 30 years, he recited it 37,000 times. Later, it seems that in his experience, including animals and wild beasts, they often came to listen to his teachings. Crows and many birds would personally peck food from his hands. Someone else introduced him saying, as recorded in the Lotus Response records, 30,000 lotus recitations over 30 springs, half a life without stepping on the temple gate's dust. Throughout his entire life, perhaps not in the first half, but the first half probably not, but in the entire latter half of his life, he never stepped on the dust of the monastery gate, meaning he single-mindedly recited the Lotus Sutra. So some ancient people had very sincere hearts, not like people nowadays, thinking one thing today, another tomorrow, running here today, there tomorrow. It's not like that. Therefore, the practice of the Lotus Sutra, for ancient people, they greatly valued it. But modern people's thinking is rather restless, unable to focus for such long periods. The Buddha told Vaisajaraja, if bodhisattvas hear the Lotus Sutra and feel fear, doubt, or anger, the Tibetan doesn't mention doubt but speaks of fear and anger, you should know this bodhisattva is newly resolved, because those who have just made aspirations have many doubts and much fear as well. But some veteran bodhisattvas with experience, when they hear such dharma, they won't be afraid or suffer. If some Śrāvakas, while listening to the Lotus Sutra, also have some fear and dread, you should know they are people of pride. They haven't truly realized yet, think they have realized, such people. Then the Buddha told Vaisajaraja Bodhisattva, if there are good sons and good daughters who, after the Tathagata's parinirvana, wish to teach the Lotus Sutra to the four assemblies, how should they teach? How should they do this? Actually, such good sons and good daughters should enter the chamber of the Tathagata. wear the robe of the Tathagata and sit on the seat of the Tathagata. Through this way, they should teach this Lotus Sutra to the four assemblies. This applies not only when teaching the Lotus Sutra, but when we teach any scripture. If someone wishes to teach scriptures, first you must enter the Tathagata's dwelling, his chamber. Then you wear the robe of the Tathagata and sit on the seat of the Tathagata to teach the four assemblies. In the process of teaching the Dharma to others, one should have such conditions or such faith. Teaching the Dharma has many requirements. Why is this said? Entering the chamber of the Tathagata actually means having great compassion for all beings. If we wish to teach, we must first dwell in the chamber of the Tathagata. What does dwelling in the Tathagata's chamber mean? When we teach, it's not for gaining fame or receiving offerings, not for such purposes. It should be for all beings to help them awaken. Teaching with the drive of great compassion, this is entering the chamber of the Tathagata. Second, what is the robe of the Tathagata? Having a gentle heart or a patient heart. Whether in the process of teaching or in practice, we must have patience. In fact, many Dharma teachers and masters must have patience. Otherwise, in the process of teaching, the Dharma rises 1 foot, obstacles rise 10 feet. Many obstacles will arise. At such times, whether it's your body or your external conditions, you must have a firm mind. If you have a firm mind, it means you're wearing the robe of the Tathagata. When teaching, what is the first condition? The first condition is having great compassion for beings. Great compassion is called entering the chamber of the Tathagata. The second condition is you must wear the robe of the Tathagata. This means having armor of firm patience that evil forces and heretics cannot harm you with. I myself can say that for over 30 years. Have I not encountered various difficulties and harms? I've encountered them many times. Sometimes my own body wasn't well. Sometimes the external environment wasn't favorable. Sometimes among our four assemblies there are various viewpoints. Humans are a very complex group. So if I want to teach the Dharma, some people may be driven by jealousy. Some people have various voices and different opinions. At such times, without patience, let alone teaching for many years, even teaching for 1 semester requires facing many issues. So teaching the Dharma definitely requires the Tathagata's patience, that is, wearing the robe of the Tathagata. If you wear the robe of the Tathagata's patience, no problem. Otherwise, some people are soft-hearted. I've encountered suffering. I originally wanted to teach everyone the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. When I reached the 23rd verse, I encountered tremendous obstacles. It seems everyone is opposing me. So I can't continue teaching. I'm really sorry, I quit. In such cases, we haven't worn the Dharma robe of the Tathagata properly. Then, sitting on the seat of the Tathagata, what is this? The Dharma we teach must have a foundation in emptiness. We must realize that all phenomena are empty, because the fundamental principle of the Tathagata's teachings is that all phenomena are empty. Without this, teaching only worldly human matters that people easily accept as humanistic Buddhism. Actually, one hasn't yet sat on the seat of the Tathagata, so the mind must definitely have purity when teaching. This is very important. The 10 stages Vibhasa treatise also says that teaching the Dharma has 4 aspects. First, not denigrating oneself. Have confidence in yourself. Don't think, how can someone like me teach others? Definitely not possible. Being overly humble and self-deprecating at such times is also not acceptable. Second, not denigrating the listeners. Have confidence in all listeners. Don't think, all the students are bad people, all barbarians, all people with uncontrolled faculties. I don't want to teach. My connection isn't here. Didn't we mention a teaching the other day? A truly skillful Bodhisattva, as taught in the 400 verses. All beings are your disciples to be tamed. It's impossible to have none, unless perhaps there are individuals with wrong views. Then you can expel them. Other than that, 99.9% should be good people. Third, one cannot denigrate the Dharma being taught. Whether I teach emptiness or great compassion, whatever Dharma I teach, I have great confidence in it. Fourth, not for gain. That is to say, in the process of teaching, it's not for obtaining offerings. Nowadays, it's sometimes quite complicated. For empowerments, when some people teach, it seems they charge a certain amount of money. It's also for offerings, to hold some Dharma assembly somewhere. This is incorrect motivation and very bad. So under such premises, we mentioned 3 conditions earlier: great compassion, patience, and what else was mentioned? Emptiness. I hope everyone remembers these. These are the key points in our daily teachings. Whether teaching others in the future or listening to teachings or practicing, we must have great compassion for beings, have patience ourselves, and value the Dharma teachings on emptiness. These 3 are extremely important. If one abides in this way with an unwearying mind, one can extensively teach the Lotus Sutra to Bodhisattvas and the 4 assemblies. An unwearying mind, if there is laziness, teaching is definitely impossible. The Buddha told Paisajya Raja Bodhisattva, "If I am in other lands, I can also manifest and dispatch people. When these Bodhisattvas teach, I will gather an audience." That is to say, when someone is teaching the Lotus Sutra somewhere, actually he can dispatch many bhiksus, bhiksunis, upasakas, and upasikas to listen. So many of you were sent by the Buddha, bhiksus, bhiksunis, upasakas, upasikas, all dispatched and arranged by the Buddha to listen to the teachings. These manifested people, these undercover agents, after hearing the Lotus Sutra, will accept it with faith and follow it properly, not going against the path. They will not violate the content of the sutras. If a Dharma teacher is in a secluded place without many people, among the many people just mentioned, perhaps the Buddha specially dispatches members of the 4 assemblies to listen. I also find this inconceivable. We now have many people listening to the Lotus Sutra. Generally speaking, this should be impossible. When I first started teaching, I thought having a few hundred or 1,000 people would be fine, but later, suddenly so many appeared. Perhaps many of you were sent by the Buddha. So I also deeply believe that if some people are in secluded places, where there aren't many people reciting the Lotus Sutra, at such times the Buddha says he can dispatch devas, nagas, spirits, gandharvas, and asuras to listen. If you're in mountain caves or wherever, actually many asuras are also sent by the Buddha. This is also very good. This special term asura emerged about 10 years ago. If one reads the Lotus Sutra in secluded places, it's also like this. Then the Buddha says, "Although I am in different lands, I can always enable Dharma teachers to see the Buddha's Dharmakaya, the Buddha's true body. If regarding the principles and words of this sutra, or if phrases are forgotten or lost, the Buddha says, through dreams or other experiences, the words and phrases you originally missed can all be completely restored and made complete." And sometimes when we receive transmissions, we might miss some words. Or when you're reciting, if there are gaps, the Buddha will use other methods to help you make up for it in excellent ways. We also mentioned here that during our teaching of the Lotus Sutra, some individuals unavoidably had transmission interruptions. Some were for the benefit of the academy, some due to personal physical reasons, and though some listened online, occasionally some words were cut off. Then during one's own recitation, I think that generally in one class session, if you listen that same day, there won't be gaps. Even if you don't hear all the Tibetan, perhaps in the Chinese that I teach afterward, basically everything is explained in vernacular. There won't be any omissions. If in Chinese the signal or internet is poor in the middle, in the 10+ minutes of Tibetan, it's already made up for everyone. So this kind of transmission is very important. If both are already cut off, later find someone with the transmission. We generally place great importance on having transmission, even if someone isn't a great master, but if they have a pure transmission, they're not a bad person. And you can listen in their presence. If someone is truly bad, perhaps they might use this means for some scheme. Hard to say. But this generally doesn't happen. We should also have confidence in people. We can't view everyone except ourselves as bad people. Then you yourself become the bad person. What comes next? The Buddha uses verses to reiterate this meaning. Wishing to abandon all laziness, one should listen to this Lotus Sutra. This sutra is extremely difficult to hear, very difficult to gain faith in this one verse. That is to say, all of us present now should abandon our lazy minds and abandon our desires. In Tibetan it says, abandon all desires and accept this sutra. In Chinese it says, abandon all lazy minds. If we don't abandon our lazy minds, indeed listening to even one class is difficult. However, during your listening process, everyone is very attentive. I see these people on site are very attentive. I'm especially grateful. Otherwise, it directly gives me a kind of reaction force. If the audience isn't attentive, then I teach even less attentively. But it seems you all are not as attentive as that exam class the other day, but it's still relatively acceptable. That day was, every day we have exams after class, teaching and testing. So at that time, basically everyone was extremely attentive. People's attention still needs certain conditions to maintain it. For most people, it's quite satisfactory. This Dharma is especially difficult to hear, and generating faith in it is also very difficult. Now, to explain this analogy, when a person is thirsty, they need to find water. So they go to a plateau to dig a well. When digging the well, at first they see some dry soil. They know the water is still quite far away. Later, gradually, they discover moist soil and mud. At this time, they become certain that water is present here. The water has come. It will be found immediately. The Buddha told Paisajya Raja Bodhisattva, you should know that people are also like this. If they don't hear this Lotus Sutra, it shows they're still very far from the Buddha's wisdom. To those around us not listening to the teachings, you can directly tell them, if you don't listen to the Lotus Sutra, attaining Buddhahood is very, very far away. I listen to the Lotus Sutra, so I'm relatively close to Bodhi. If they hear some profound sutras but are determined to be Śrāvakas, that is, they only listen without properly practicing in such cases, we know they have hope of attaining the Śrāvaka fruition if after hearing this king of sutras they not only hear it but also contemplate and practice it. This person is close to the Buddha's wisdom, so we should try our best. When practicing, actually practice. When contemplating, actually contemplate. After listening, you should also think more about why this Lotus Sutra has such great merit. You should contemplate this. If someone teaches this sutra, they should enter the chamber of the Tathagata, wear the robe of the Tathagata, and sit on the seat of the Tathagata. Among the multitude, they teach extensively without fear, possessing the 4 conditions mentioned above to teach. So what is the chamber of the Tathagata? Having great compassion, this is called the chamber of the Tathagata. Having gentleness and patience, this is called the robe of the Tathagata. If all phenomena are realized as empty, this is the seat of the Tathagata. So when teaching others, we must possess these. Everyone must remember this. Many here who are not yet famous. The other day someone said, Kenpo, I'm not famous now. I haven't attained any high realizations. But I believe that with my wisdom, my character, my diligence, my discipline, my power of patience, and so on, because of possessing many such merits, I will definitely become a great Dharma teacher in the future. So I also believe that among you, many will become especially remarkable great Dharma teachers in the future. A great Dharma teacher must possess what was mentioned above, compassion for beings and patience of mind. Actually, in our world, these very successful great masters of past generations all possess these. First, without great compassion for beings, their teaching will cease at a certain point. Then, without a very strong will, because in the Dharma ending age, propagating the Dharma is not easy. Eventually, they cannot persevere. When encountering any obstacle, they cannot endure. Without realization of emptiness, at a certain point, the Dharma you teach lacks deep flavor. With some realization and understanding of emptiness, even if you speak very simple worldly words, they contain much inconceivable blessing power and very profound meaning. So generally, whether reviewing history or looking at the stories and biographies of many masters, certainly they all possess these 3 conditions of the Tathagata: the chamber of the Tathagata, the robe of the Tathagata, the seat of the Tathagata. With these 3, for example, when we teach now, we need a Dharma hall. This is called the chamber of the Tathagata. We need the Dharma robe of the Tathagata and also the Dharma seat of the Tathagata. Then the Dharma teacher naturally possesses many conditions and circumstances. This is what I explained. Dharma teachers must definitely possess these. When teaching this Dharma, when teaching this Lotus Sutra, if someone verbally abuses and slanders and uses various weapons, swords, staves, tiles, stones, etc., to attack, you should patiently endure by mindfully remembering the Buddha's wisdom and kindness. The Mahasamnipata Akashagarbha Bodhisattva Sutra says, if others curse us, we do not curse back. We should know that words are like empty space. In our 4 dharmas of Shramanas, if others curse us, we do not curse back. We regard sound as what? As being like empty space. If others strike us, we do not retaliate. We should think that our own and others' bodies are like empty space. When struck, we do not strike back. If others are angry with me, I do not retaliate. We should contemplate the mind as being like empty space. If others tease me, mock me, find fault with me, expose my shortcomings, in such cases, I also view consciousness as empty space. The latter two, one is mind, one is consciousness, as empty space. So in the practice of the 4 dharmas of Shramanas, when others strike or curse us, we should patiently endure everything. This verse says, the Buddha in millions of lands manifests a pure, solid body and teaches beings for immeasurable kalpas. The Buddha said, if after my parinirvana someone can teach this Lotus Sutra, I will dispatch the 4 assemblies, bhiksus and bhiksuns, as well as pure laymen and laywomen, upasakas and upasikas, to make offerings to this Dharma teacher. Moreover, I will lead many beings, gathering them all together to properly listen to teachings before this Dharma teacher. If someone wishes to create obstacles for them, or maliciously slander them, or use various weapons, swords, staves, tiles, stones to attack them, then at that time the Buddha will also dispatch some emanated people to serve as protectors for them, to serve as special guards for them, bearing weapons to protect them, a self-defense force, or some others to protect them. The Buddha said, if a Dharma teacher is in a solitary, secluded place, lonely, without any human voices, reciting the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha said, at that time I will appear before them with a pure, radiant body. We mentioned before Master Huisi of the Tiantai school. When Master Ji went to see him, his teacher, Master Si, told him, in the past we both made vows together at the Vulture Peak Assembly. This time let us practice the Lotus Sutra together for 3 weeks. Then by the 2nd week, it seems while on the Medicine King chapter, Master Ji had already entered meditative absorption. While in absorption within his meditative state, he completely saw the entire Lotus Assembly scene of the Buddha at Vulture Peak. Upon emerging from absorption, he told his teacher about his experience. At that time, his teacher said, if it were not you, this could not be realized. If it were not me, this could not be recognized. If it were not you, such a state could not be realized. If it were not me, such facts could not be discerned. So what you've seen now is authentic. Master Ji later composed many treatises, and the entire Tiantai school flourished through his blessing power and the power of his realization. It was propagated. So sometimes in secluded places or when contemplating the Dharma, meaning in assemblies, the Tathagata personally appears. At that time, Master Ji personally saw these aspects of the Buddha. When we went to Vulture Peak before, I was at the foot of Vulture Peak and told this story to His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. I said, in Han Chinese Buddhism, there was Master Ji who had such visions at Vulture Peak and also saw Venerable Kashyapa and saw the entire scene of that time. There's a history book that explains this quite extensively. At that time, His Holiness also mentioned the story of Changyang Gyatso going to Vulture Peak, as well as Master Ji's story. At that time, after His Holiness finished speaking, the Venerable One also entered meditative absorption for a long time. Going to India was like this. What follows is quite quick. Generally, actual teaching is about an hour. The transmission recitation earlier took over 10 minutes. There are still 2 more verses. If someone is in a secluded place reciting the Lotus Sutra, then the Buddha says, I will dispatch some celestial beings, Naga kings, as well as yaksas, spirits, and so on, to listen to the Dharma. If we have no retinue, everyone needn't worry. In your own room or in a quiet mountain cave, you just recite the Lotus Sutra yourself. You may not see with the physical eye, but the Buddha will definitely dispatch people, dispatch some devas, nagas, demons to listen before you. Just don't be afraid, that's all. These people can teach the Dharma joyfully, with discrimination having no hindrances or obstructions. Because all Buddhas protect and are mindful of them, they protect and mindfully regard them. This enables beings to gain tremendous joy. There's a text in Han Buddhism called the Anthology of Ease, which seems to have been composed by a Han Chinese master. Historically, it later became very popular in Japan. It mainly contains Pure Land stories and accounts of rebirth. It says within, there are 2 kinds of people who gain immeasurable merit and blessings. What are these 2? First, those who delight in teaching the Dharma. Second, those who delight in listening to the Dharma. Two kinds of joyful people. One person who delights in teaching and one person who delights in listening. These people actually appear to be two people. We've cited some scriptural sources on this before. But actually the merit created by these two people is inconceivable. We also now, generally speaking, have some people listening and some teaching, including our study group sessions below. These are all the same. Everyone's listening to and teaching the Dharma should not be regarded as ordinary behavior. For our life after life, this is of tremendous significance. If we stay close to a Dharma teacher, if we stay close to those who teach the Lotus Sutra or recite the Lotus Sutra, such Dharma teachers, then very quickly we will attain the Bodhisattva path. We should follow and learn from such a Dharma teacher. If you merely encounter a Dharma teacher and say, I want to stay close to you, I'll always follow you. Wherever you take a step, I follow. Wherever you go, I'll never leave your side. I won't let you go. This also won't work. You should learn from the Dharma teacher. If you follow the teacher without learning, it's fundamentally useless. Many now who rely on a guru fundamentally don't know the purpose. You should properly learn from the Dharma teacher. In this way, very quickly one will behold Tathagatas as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. This chapter is now complete. It's very complete. In 2 class sessions, this chapter is complete. So I hope everyone will properly follow Dharma teachers in the future. But following a teacher, merely chasing after them won't work. You should still properly learn. Learn their discipline, concentration, and wisdom. We speak of the 3 trainings. Everyone must know the 3 trainings. What should we learn? Learn discipline, pure discipline. Learn concentration, learn wisdom. Only this counts as truly relying on a spiritual teacher, truly keeping pace with the Dharma teacher. All right, that's all for today.
Bandara Banma Sodargye